Hi there, folks. Welcome to another hour of the Don Kroah Show, as we say, daily conversation on matters. Coming to you live from Radio Row at the Hold Their Feet to the Fire broadcast. Some 50 broadcasters or more from all across the country gathered at the Phoenix Park Hotel here in Washington, D.C. The event sponsored by FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform.
There's a great piece at blackandright.com by Bob Parks, and he talks about the circumstances involving.
Delighted to welcome Bob Parks. He is with the Black Conservative Network, Project 21. We've talked with a number of their members through the years. He's a senior video producer for the Media Research Center. And Bob, great to have you with me. Thank you for coming by.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you.
Well, I'll tell you, I've appreciated through the years the work of Project 21. Talk about this, what some would say is seemingly an anomaly, if you will, a black conservative, let alone a black conservative network. I'm encouraged that the conservative movement is really growing in the black community. Am I right or wrong in that?
It's growing. There is this perception that since we all look alike, we're all supposed to think and vote alike. And what the main purpose of Project 21 is to counter that perception. Whenever something happens in the black community, the usual suspects are called upon on television and radio to interpret for the rest of the world what black people are thinking and going through. But there are always two sides to every story. And the purpose of Project 21 is to offer that other perspective.
Talk about that a little further in terms of the black community becoming increasingly aware that they really have been victimized as an ethnic group by some of the very policies of people who said that they were their best defenders and their best representatives.
Every 2 years, you hear the same politicians come into the community and say, we're going to fix this, we're going to fix education, we'll lower crime. But every 2 years, they have to make the same promises because nothing ever changes. And I've always been marveling at the artistry that it takes to be able to keep coming back in and making promises that you know you're not going to keep. Politicians are funny. If you were to lose your job, for example, they would say, that's too bad. But when a politician knows that their job is in jeopardy, everything becomes an emergency. In the black community, there is no competition. It's always Democrat always wins. And politicians tend to get lazy. They
take it for granted.
They take it for well. That's another thing we always hear. The black community always coming to a politician and say, "Don't take the black vote for granted." The Democrat says, oh, "Okay, no, of course I won't," and they have to be reminded this every 2 years, subsequently down the road. Nothing changes, and until the black community decides to give the other side a chance, just for 2 years. If you don't like it, you can always go back. And for example, we're talking about illegal immigration. In Los Angeles, South LA, for example, where I worked for a little bit doing some freelance work, there's a real concern that the black community is becoming the brown community. The Latinos are moving in out of a lack of a better choice of words. They're breeding out the black community, and there's lots of tension in the black community because of it. They're losing jobs to people who are willing to take the jobs for less money, and it's really impacting the black community to the point where I'm really surprised that there hasn't been an explosion yet.
Well, you know, I'm glad you went to that point, because that's what I wanted to ask you. Specifically when it comes to immigration issues and illegals coming in and filling up the job market, what little jobs there are now in this particular economy, it seems to me of all the groups that ought to reflect real concern and outrage even over it is the black community, because of what you've just said, that they are the first to often lose those job opportunities.
Well, and you would think that would be the case, but at the same time, the politicians will come in, especially black Democrats will come in and just say, well, we're all victims, we're all in this together. They want, in some cases, I think because they know they have the black vote sewn up, they're pretty much blowing off the black vote and really courting the Latino vote, which is growing and becoming voters. Whether they should be or not is another thing. But so again, I think the black vote is being taken for granted, and I just wish that the Republican Party would do more, the conservatives in general would do more to try to reach out and court the black vote, because in very many cases the black vote is very conservative. Remember Prop 8? The gay community was outraged at the black community because the black community overwhelmingly voted against gay marriage. You hear liberals always mocking the church, but if you go to places like South Central or any black communities, you'll see more churches per square block than any other place in the country. So in many issues, the black community is right in line with the conservative movement. But because of misinformation, miseducation, the black folk believe that conservatives in the Republican Party created the Klan. It turns out it's really the other way around.
Isn't that ironic? It is. And in the Civil Rights Act of 65, it was the conservatives and the Republicans who really carried the ball on that, contra somebody like Al Gore's dad, who voted against it.
J. William Fulbright voted against it. I mean, there's a whole score of a list of historical facts that if black people really knew our history, there'd be no reason for them to be voting Democrat, because actually back in the day, black folk voted Republican because they weren't really allowed to do other than that.
We are talking with Bob Parks. He is a member of the Black Conservative Network Project 21. And I'm going to give you a couple of websites: nationalcenter.org, nationalcenter.org, also mrc.org, mrc.org. He is the senior video producer for a great organization, the Media Research Center. They're located in Old Town Alexandria, do great work, have done so for years. And as a former resident of Southern Cal, as you alluded a moment ago, Bob, have you always been a conservative? And if so, how did that happen?
No, actually, I grew up as a Boston Democrat. And it wasn't until I joined the Navy and traveled overseas, and I was stationed on the USS Midway out of Yokosuka, Japan. We would frequently go to places like the Philippines, Thailand, and having an opportunity to go to places like the Philippines and seeing real poverty. Not the poverty we see here in America, where poor people have a couple of color TVs and some cell phones and actual private bathrooms, little luxuries like that. But it's like going into a Sally Struthers commercial for more than 30 seconds. You get the smells, you get all of that, and you actually get to see, of all the places that you could have born, as far as racist as we've been told this country is and how unfair, of all the places that you could have been born, America was the best place. And it was that, and a friend of mine at a network that I worked for who turned me on to this guy on the radio by the name of Rush Limbaugh, who I found kind of made sense. And then actually becoming a Republican in the mid-'90s when I ran out of excuses for Bill Clinton. Because that was kind of hard, making excuses for that man.
Yeah, that took some labor.
Well, it took a lot of intellectual dishonesty.
There you go. I hope we can talk again soon. It's a delight to have you here, and we'll stay in touch. We're neighbors. We're just up the road a little bit from you in Roslyn area of Arlington, our studios, so perhaps we can have you come in and do an hour together with me sometime.
I would be honored. Thank you, sir.
Bob Parks, nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Again, Bob is with the Black Conservative Network Project 21, senior video producer for the Media Research Center. And their websites, nationalcenter.org, nationalcenter.org, and mrc.org. Coming back with more in a moment here.